it's pretty scattered across the board. But the main number in my mind is that of the almost 600, and it's just under 600, 188 ended up at Osceola, and they make up about 41% of the ninth grade class. Now, so the options, and we came up with 5 options, and once again, we'll take the board's direction on any of these. But just knowing what we showed you prior to this slide is one of the options you create one new full-sized fundamental high school beginning with ninth grade for 2010-2011. If you did that, obviously it would be a 4-year implementation, and it would require some rezoning. Now, if you did a South County high school, the rezoning probably wouldn't go much past Ulmerton, maybe just past that. Those schools north of that probably wouldn't be touched. If you started at a North County high school, there would be a ripple effect, and there would be some rezoning required, probably down to as far south as the Seminole area. Just know that would be an impact. Not to mention some of the staff issues and just the mechanics that go through that, but it's all doable. And I say that with caution. Any of these are doable. And I know there's people watching me right now that are be the ones doing it that are probably saying, why did he say that? But, we can move mountains if need be. The second option is you create 2 new fundamental high schools. And that would be beginning with ninth grade only. And obviously, if you did that, you'd have to rezone every high school zone in the county. There's no way to avoid that. A third option would be you do a school within a school model beginning with grade 9 at one high school. A lot of these issues would be school-based. There could be some future rezoning down the road, but there most likely wouldn't be if you did it in 10-11. You could do some things with the current, depending upon which schools were chosen. And notice I'm deliberately not naming schools because there's some steps that would have to be taken according to the countywide handbook to identify which schools, get the interest, and get them to follow through certain steps. But if the third option were to be chosen, we'd need to do some quick work with the school. We could look at the current feeder pattern into that high school, the regular feeder pattern. It gives, do you give a preference for those kids to try to reduce the transportation and try to make it just a natural flow for those students? But there's a lot of things that we could do there to smooth that one. The next to the last option would be you do a school within a school at 2 high schools, one north and one south. And once again, down the road, there could be some possible rezoning that would go along with that, as depending upon how it was rolled out, in terms of how many seats you determine needed, you could allow for it and what have you. And then the last option is you just let Osceola High School absorb the current 8th graders who wish to attend that school in 10-11, knowing that at the time this chart was written, there were 849 8th graders, that if they all applied and really wanted to attend, there wouldn't be enough seats. The other thing that I'll add here is that right now there's 849 rising 8th graders. Next year there would be, or for the 11-12 year, there would be about 100, right around 100 in addition to that. So around 950 or so. And then the following year it would be 950 or so, and it would probably continue to be that number of students.
And that's not taking into account the people who would come from private schools.
That's right. So once again, if you're using the Osceola High option, in the event that there were a high percentage of current 8th grade fundamental students who really wanted one of those seats, that would mean that nobody who's currently not in a fundamental 8th grade would most likely not get in, and we pretty much would close the door to any private school students or homeschool students or new students to the district that may want to get into it also.
Or zone kids.
Well, Osceola doesn't have a zone. Thank heavens.
The other piece of that is that number seems large, but again, remember what he said at the beginning, 31% of the 8th grade students
Yeah.
applied to go to Osceola, 41% of the current 9th grade class came from fundamental schools.
Assuming, and I assume nothing, assuming history repeated itself, and of that 849, only 1 out of every 3, even if it was 1 out of every 2, it has ramifications.
Right.
Okay.
So you said 850 for 2010.
Okay.
And about 950
You can go
for
back.
2011?
I think their PowerPoint.
There's about 100 more
967, I think, the
7th
next.
graders than there are 8th graders at those 3 schools, and there's about the same number of 6th graders. It's pretty level for the most part for 6th and 7th grade at Coachman, Thurgood, and Madeira Beach. So I'm trying to be very objective here, just trying to put the facts on the table, and now I think this is where we turn it over to board members for your discussion.
What's the usual 9th grade capacity at Osceola?
Figure about 450 students.
That's
So if
to
the
keep it at
percentages hold true,
1,800.
We're probably about okay.
That's right.
According to the-
That's right.
But even if it increased a little, but if it increased, if they all went there, that's when this is faced this year.
That's right. Knowing that, the question then becomes, is it, what do you do in 10, 11? But knowing that in 11, 12, there's a bigger group of students coming along.
Did you
I just have a clarification. We were given a PowerPoint forwarded by Van, and they had those specific numbers. Those numbers hold true to what you're saying right now. I think it was 450,
And I went back and reviewed their PowerPoint to make sure that,
Okay.
knowing that
It's all in that
where there
PowerPoint.
may be, some of the
One or
numbers will
two.
remain constant. Where the number that may change depending upon whose source you look at is knowing that, I think in that PowerPoint you're talking about, it said 852 students.
Mhm.
Well, 3 left.
Right, okay.
So
We're right there.
that's where the 849.
Okay.
But to me, even if you say around 850, give or take some.
So, I guess the question that I have to ask is there really a dire need, if we're looking at like what you're saying about the percentages, is there really a dire need to move forward with more fundamental high schools? Is this an issue that has to be addressed right now, or is this something that we're going to look at in long-range plans? I mean, I'm just trying to get a grasp on what the, and to hear from the administration, what, is that something that's urgent?
Yes and no. Urgent would be to make a decision whether we decide for next year or the following year, just so we have a plan, which, if the board decided to do the 2 schools within schools, one north, one south, and you wanted that to start in fall, we knew what we'd have to do then.
Right.
If our direction would be hold tight next year, wait a year, then we know what we do then, because we have processes. But we would like to have kind of your idea of what you're thinking so we can plan starting now. And so is there an urgency of opening another school? Well, the decision would be based on, if you look at prior statistics, and that's your trend data, if half of those kids decided to go to Osceola, we now have an incoming class of pure fundamental kids that move from fundamental middle to fundamental high of 425 approximately. Well, that would take most of the seats. It would not allow for people that didn't have the automatic shoe-in. That would be students from any other middle school that would want to apply. They'd be shut out.
Right.
Private school kids might be also. So that's guessing a high percentage, 50%.